rely heavily on process of elimination. Sentence deconstruction. So there are things that you really want to pay attention to in terms of the way that the GRE builds out text completions and sentence equivalences. Big part is looking for features that you need to pay attention to within a given sentence. Oftentimes, punctuation is huge. Colons. Colons are used in sentences to show that something is following, like a quotation, example, or a list. So when you see a colon in a text completion, especially if you see a blank following a colon, well then what comes before the colon is describing the blank, and that is hugely helpful. Colons may join two independent clauses where the second explains or elaborates on the first, but the fact is you're getting more detail when you see a colon, and depending on where the blank is, that punctuation can be really helpful. The colon has a cousin, the semicolon. They are used to join two independent clauses or two complete thoughts that could stand alone as complete sentences. They're often linked with shift words. So you want to pay attention to what is around a semicolon, but similar to a semicolon often sets up something that is closely related. So depending on where that blank is, the punctuation can really help you dig into what might be very illuminating context clues. Commas, keep track of commas within these sentences. They have many uses, but they act as natural separation points. Sometimes commas set up an appositive, which is a description or more explanation of what came before it. If that blank, so if you have basically a bunch of context clues that describe something, a colon, and then a blank, well, that blank has just been described by what precedes the colon. So that's something to pay attention to. And dashes are very similar. They interrupt sentences to insert clauses or additional, often descriptive information, and they can be used to introduce tangents or to provide emphasis. And again, it's really important to pay attention to where this punctuation is happening in or around the blank. Words are also really important, and understanding the function of word types within a sentence. So type of words that are important, cause words indicate a cause appropriately, and you want to pay attention to the way they function in a text completion or a sentence equivalent. Effect words, they indicate an effect. Pay attention to how those function within these types of sentences. Look at what comes before and after. Where is the blank? Is it in the cause part? Is it in the effect part? Really watch out for contrast words because those indicate shifts in sentences. So a sentence that starts out positive might shift to be negative and vice versa. Pay attention to anything that intensifies. So anything that, oftentimes it could be adjectives, but anything that elevates the tone of a sentence, pay attention to that and pay attention to how it might affect the blank. And then, of course, illustrative words provide examples. Pay attention to where those appear or occur within a sentence, what they're describing. Does it describe the blank? Does the blank come after something that's already been illustrated? All of those things are essential in terms of using the different elements of a sentence to help you come up with the correct answer for a text completion or a sentence equivalence. Here we go. Pull this prompt apart into some pieces using the clues we discussed in the previous slide, and then we'll go through it together. But take a second and then we'll start going through it together. We'll see if you identify the same elements of the sentence that I will discuss. Okay, so this first part, the scaling of Mount Everest, then we've got dashes, known by the Sherpa of Nepal as Chomolungma. All of that's in dashes. It's telling me another name of Mount Everest. When you see information inserted and it's offset by dashes and commas, that's oftentimes non-essential information. So if we identify something as just descriptive and it's not providing really anything new, we can often skip over or completely eliminate these type of asides made between dashes or made between commas. They might be extraneous details, not crucial to the prompt as a whole, and they're just there as distractors. So that whole chunk, I would probably strike out or gloss over. All right, looms large. The GRE loves phrases like that. So you get this like looms large, and that's sort of an intensifier. You want to simplify these things. Looms large, it's easier just to say something along the lines of, it's a big deal. So the scaling of Mount Everest was a big deal for people in the Western, whatever that is. As you'll notice, we've already taken out, right, that middle part is gone about what the Sherpa call it, because it's not going to necessarily help me. So Then we get to this intelligista. It's over complex, and we can simplify that. So what does this word mean? It's got to be something like smart people, or we can go with smarties. Make it casual. So now what we have is this last bit. We've got the semicolon with however a rising death toll in recent seasons may ultimately tarnish this high accolade. We have a semicolon with a shift word that is a very common construction. That semicolon with however indicates that the second part of this is bringing up a negative. The blank is in the positive part. So what kind of word fits in the blank? This is where you actually make a guess. If it's anything along the lines of greatest achievement or high point, that is very solid, and that would be great to have in your mind as what to compare the answer choices to. Increasing the odds. What to do if you still really don't know what to do. Increasing the odds means I might have a word that I think works for the blank, but I don't know what's up with these answer choices. Still, when you dig into the answer choices, try to eliminate any clearly wrong answers. So antonym, or something that's too strong or too weak. Partial fits. Those all are going to fail and not be the actual credited response. Hunt for clues within words to divine their meaning. So if you're not sure what words mean, think about, okay, well, do the prefix or suffix reveal anything to me about the part of speech or a word that this might be related to? Roots can definitely help you. Think about context you might have heard the words in. Was it a positive or negative context? Anything that helps you begin to eliminate down. And then, of course, according to this Sir Arthur Conan Doyle quote, basically, if you've eliminated everything else and a word you don't know is the only word that remains, well, that's probably the word that is correct. Rely heavily on process of elimination. This can be super scary, but remember that the GRE is about precision and logic. So there has to be a correct answer that fits, and it doesn't necessarily matter how you get to that correct answer. If you know it, that's awesome. If you don't, you might still be able to get it by using process of elimination. So here is that all together. Remember the words we had from the last slide. Anything along the lines of greatest achievement or highest point, something like that. So those were our words that we were using to compare to these answer choices. If you went with apogee, you are 100% correct. Nicely done.